Hello everybody, Dark Skeleton here, and in this video we have a 14 card review, I believe 14 cards anyway, of fan-made cards by ORipperO, and this is a completely blind review. I haven't really taken a look at them. So first up we have the Enchained Drake, a 4 mana 6/5, very strong stats, very strong stats in fact. Normal would be like a 4 mana 5/4, so it's +1/+1. The downside is it cannot attack unless it is the only dragon on the battlefield. So looking at that, that's actually not that big of a drawback, because how many dragons are people really going to be playing? Cards like Enchained Drake are very popular, of course. Twilight Drake's pretty popular. But dragon decks in general, not currently too much of a thing, so the odds of them having a counter to this by putting a dragon on the field to stop it, I don't think it's really that huge. And in addition to that, even if they do stop this from attacking, it's still a 6/5 on the field. All you have to do is basically blow up their dragon and it can attack again. And yes, I know that stops Eerie Statue, the 4 mana 7/7, from being able to do anything, but that drawback where it has to be the only minion on the battlefield is a lot bigger than the only dragon on the battlefield. So I think this is a really strong card in non-dragon decks. Probably a little OP. I mean, maybe people will kind of adapt to it and start playing Azure Drakes or something, but I don't feel too bad about having a 6/5 on the field that can't attack for one turn. Especially if you're playing more of a control deck. So, pretty strong card. Probably would be kind of meta changing. People would have to play around it or something like that. Next up, Protector of the Forest. A 4 mana 5/6 beast. That's pretty much just straight up really strong. Not much else to say about that, generally speaking, but a 5 mana 5/6 a pit fighter is already a really good arena card. Doesn't quite make it into competitive Hearthstone, but I think with 5/6 stats on a 4-drop, you can't really deny that card's power. Though, to be fair, the Cthulhu Druid with the 4 mana 4/10s, if you have a Cthulhu at 10 attack or more, that's not really too much of a thing anymore, so I guess that wasn't enough to drive that deck. But the advantage of this card is you can put it in any deck. It's also a beast, really good synergy with Menagerie Warden. I think if you added this card to the game currently, it would probably push Beast Druid over the top. It's just a very powerful card in general. Next up, Revival. 8 mana, destroy all minions and restore 10 health. So I would assume you would target your face with that almost every time. So compared to Twisting Nether, Twisting Nether of course needs to be a little bit weaker than other 8-drops because Warlock is the class with the strongest hero power. And Priest does need a little bit of help currently. Like, Light Bomb was taken out of the game and that kind of shadowed Priest, with my basic understanding of it. So having like 1 copy of Revival on your deck, I think that could be pretty good. Is it overpowered at 8 mana? If it was in Warlock, hell yes, but it's a Priest card, so I think this card would be pretty solid. Could help Priest out, but like in a lot of cases, the aggro decks probably kill you by turn 8 anyway, and you have to draw it, and you can only include 1 in your deck because 2 8-drop board clears would make your deck way too slow. So it's maybe a one-off. I don't think it would save Priest in and of itself, but pretty solid, fairly interesting. Next up, Forest Giant. It's a Druid Giant, 12 mana, 8/8, as all giants pretty much are. Costs 1 less for every beast you have summoned this game. Okay, I think that card is not particularly good, and here's why. There's already Protector of the Forest, which is a 7 mana for every beast you've summoned. Costs 1 less this game, and it's a 6/6. I think a 7 mana 6/6 that's reduced by 1 for every beast you've summoned is better than an 8/8 that costs 5 additional mana. Odds of getting like 8 or 12 beasts summoned in one game, pretty unlikely, but yeah, almost very unlikely. If somehow you have like, I don't know, like a Living Roots type card that could summon additional beasts, or maybe you could bring back I don't know, like Pantry Spider to summon 2 beasts, and then you do that with Forest Giant and the Protector of the Wild. You could reduce the cards enough to make it basically like a 1 or 2 mana 8/8 and a 0 mana 6/6. But I don't think that's really going to be a thing. You'd have to go too far out of your way to summon enough of those cards to really make the deck good. So probably just a bad card, straight up. If it was like 10 mana, maybe that would be more worthwhile to consider, but Beasts is a pretty specific kind of thing. If you're going to make your deck pure Beast, then you're getting rid of other good cards like Enchained Drake, and you wouldn't really be able to fit Curator into the deck, maybe. And yeah, you're throwing away good cards to play kind of a bad card. Okay, punishment. New Paladin Secret, 1 mana. When you take damage, gain a random spell of the same amount of damage taken. Okay, so I assume that means cost. So you take 5 damage and you get a random 5 cost spell. Interesting. Is that good? Kind of hard to say. I mean, a random spell is nowhere near as good as, like, a very specific spell, or so, I mean, obviously. Like, you could compare that to 1 mana Babbling Book, which just straight up adds a random spell to your hand, and that's not conditional, it just happens, and you can get 2 spells off of Brand Bronzebeard. This takes a deck slot up. You will eventually take damage, but it might just be like 1. Would you pay 1 mana to get another 1-drop, or 1 mana to get a 2-drop spell when it's random? It might not even be usable. You could get, like, Deadly Poison when you have no other weapons to use it with, or something like that. And yes, I know Paladins do have weapons, but I mean, it might be okay, but I don't feel like the effect's really strong enough to justify it. Why would you want to put a card that eventually will get you a random spell when you could just put that spell in your deck to begin with? The one exception would be if you're playing Mysterious Challenger. Is that enough to make Mysterious Challenger good? Probably not, but I guess if you were playing a Mysterious Challenger deck, you might play this. Just to basically cycle into a better spell in that mid to late game. But straight up playing it, no. Hell no. Okay, Insolent Thief, 3 mana, 2/2. Whenever this minion attacks a hero, add a random class card to your hand. So that would have direct synergy with cards like the Ethereal Pillager, the Thief rogue deck. I mean, it has Thief in the name of the card, so it makes sense. But a 2/2 is really weak stats. You could compare it to the 2 mana Cut Purse, 2 mana, 2/2. Whenever that attacks a hero, add a coin to your hand. Is it worth 1 more mana to basically play a Cut Purse that adds cards to your hand instead of a coin? Not really. I mean, you could almost argue that for a Gadget Sand Auctioneer deck, most rogue decks, the coin can even be better than a random class card. So paying 1 more mana, gaining no extra stats to do that, not really worth it. I mean, Cut Purse isn't even played. I don't even think it's close to being played, so I don't see how this could really be a thing. Like, unless you had a way to give it charge, or Stealth and Wind Fury, or something crazy like that, it's, not really that great. More than likely, it's just gonna die to 2 damage. Like, your opponent's 2 mana, 2/3 trades into it, and it's pretty sad, or it bogs up your hand because you can't play it because your opponent's just gonna remove it. Not very good. Not a terrible idea, though. Okay, King of Krakens, 12 mana Shaman Legendary, 8/8 Beast. Interesting that it's a beast, so you could pull it out of a Curator. Costs 1 less for every locked mana crystal this game. Okay, so basically it's a new type of giant. Can you lock up like 10 mana crystals in a game? If you're playing Elemental Destruction, easily. Like 2 Elemental Destructions and you have a 2 mana 8/8 that's a beast. And you can pull it with Curator. You could pull it with Curator and then play it almost immediately. I think this is actually a pretty good card if you're going to play that kind of control Shaman deck. Where you just flip the board in the late game. Maybe you Elemental Destruction and then you play King of Krakens on the back of that. And then you could even probably do like a Lava Burst. So like King of Krakens already down to 5 mana in your hand. You Elemental Destruction for 3 mana. It's like turn 6 or something like that. Or 8 or 10. Then you play King of Krakens for free. You Lava Shock to get rid of those locked mana crystals. And you have extra mana to just turn the board around completely. That could be a thing. I think I kind of like this card. It's not a bad idea. The fact that it's a beast is probably one of the more interesting cards for me because I really like Curator decks. So a Curator control Shaman, Maybe. Maybe. Okay, Light Golem. 10 mana, 8/8. Costs 1 less for every buffed minion on the battlefield. I'm not sure how you want to make that work. Buffing a minion is not that easy. Like, you have to have Power Word Shields, Velen's Chosen if you're playing Wild Mode. Let's see, Power Word Tentacles, was that the name of it? And even then, you could only really knock it down to like a 6 mana 8/8 or a 5 mana 8/8 at best, but that's never going to happen. Realistically, it's going to be more like an 8 mana 8/8, and that's just not very good. So honestly, I think this would have to be like a base mana of like 8 to be playable, because buffing a minion, there's not really a card that buffs every minion on the battlefield, so I just don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know, like maybe 1 less for every minion that has a non-standard effect, like if it gets silenced by Mass Dispel into Light Golem or something like that. Could be interesting. Yeah, card needs a little bit of rebalancing there, but not a horrible idea, just not gonna work in practice. Okay, 4 mana Druid of the Forest, 2/2 transform into a 5/6 dragon or a 5/6 beast. I don't think transforming into a dragon or a beast is a bad idea. So there's a little bit of like tribal versatility there, but kind of in line with that other card. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I see now. The Druid of the Forest turns into those other cards. Just a 4 mana 5/6 though is just too powerful, I think, currently. It would be 100% power creep into the game, because Pit Fighter 5/6, you could argue it's not really currently played, but it's close to being playable. Like Prince Malchezaar isn't that terrible of a card, the one that adds 5 random legendaries to your deck. It's just that in an aggro metagame, it basically gets crushed. You can't afford to play those really slow legendaries. But a 4 mana 5/6 is just really powerful stats for the mana cost. And then you throw on top of that being able to do the dragon or beast transformation. If this was like being able to be pulled by Curator as well, that would be pretty insane. The only real downside of the card is that if your opponent forces it out of your deck, like with a Death Lord or something like that, then you get stuck with the 2/2. That kind of sucks. But overall, yeah, just mega powerful. So next up, the Jade Serpent. 8 mana, 6/6 dragon. Gain a copy of every dragon in the battlefield. Copy goes into hand. That's kind of like a win more card. So this would only really be good in situations where the Herald card, the legendary from Old Gods for the Priest class, would be good, where that creates a 1/1 copy of every other minion on your battlefield. Because basically, to have like 3 big dragons on your field, or like a Twilight Drake, an Azure Drake, and I don't know, maybe like a Ysera, you'd already have to be so far ahead that your opponent's pretty much conceded anyway. You could argue, like, in those really slow control matchups, maybe this is like, well, if this comes down, you defeat the other fatigue decks or something like that. But overall, it's just really slow. Like, in most cases, like, sure, it might gain a copy of 1 dragon on the battlefield, but then you just paid 8 mana to put a 6/6 on the field, and that's not really good for tempo, which means aggro decks are going to walk all over you. And that's the problem with this card. It's not a bad idea, it's just too slow. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Void Drake, 3 mana, 3/4 Priest Dragon. Interesting. Dragon Priest could use a little bit of a bump so that it's a thing again. If you're holding a dragon, deal 2 damage. Yeah, that's really powerful, actually. It's basically like a second wave of the Blackwing Corruptor. 5 mana, 5/4, deal 3 damage if you're holding a dragon. And that card is basically the card that I think makes dragon decks work, because it's like a fire elemental for 1 less mana. It's pretty insane. So Void Drake, a 3 mana card that basically battlecries deals 2 damage is very powerful, especially when it has better stats than an SI7 agent. An SI7 agent is played in every single rogue deck. That requires you to combo it with something else. I'd say that's about as hard as having a dragon in a dragon deck, like having a backstab in a rogue deck. So this is just a very powerful card. The stats will contest the board. Dragon Priest will be able to hold on easier, and I think the more dragon cards you throw at Dragon Priest in the early game, the more valuable it would be, naturally, but maybe it needs something like this, I don't know. It's a very strong card. It would definitely make Dragon Priest worth considering again, at the very least. Okay, Primal Dragon, 8 mana, 7/6. Battlecry, discover a 5 mana dragon. Okay, interesting. So you can't discover dragons that aren't class cards, so you could only get the Dragon Consort if you were playing Paladin. An 8 mana that draws a 5 mana card, discover a little bit better than drawing, I would think. You could also get a Azure Drake from that. That's really strong. You can almost always pick an Azure Drake. So, worse than average stats. You could think of it like a 6 mana 7/6. Is it worth 2 mana to 2 mana draw an Azure Drake? Or another dragon if you don't want the Azure Drake? I'd say that's pretty sick. This would be worth considering in Dragon decks, I definitely think. But what about comparing it to something like Ysera for 1 more mana? A 4/12 where you basically get to add a random, like, blow up the field or a really good dragon to your hand. I'm not sure if it's better than the big dragons like Onyxia, Nefarian, or Ysera. If this was 7 mana, it would be OP for sure. Maybe this is pretty well balanced, actually, because 8 mana is a lot to pay for a card, so you expect it to do something insane, like Ragnaros the Firelord. Basically snipe something on the board, and it's ridiculous. Like that, you play Primal Dragon, they play Ragnaros, you get destroyed. So, is this better than Ragnaros? Probably not. Is this good? I think it's playable. So, probably not OP, but a worthy consideration for Dragon decks. Maybe you play one of, or something like that, or maybe if you're doing a budget Dragon deck, this is a really good card for you since it's a common. So, I kind of like it, actually. Okay, Chozerg the Destroyer. I have no idea who Chozerg is. Or is that supposed to be a made-up name because it's like Zerg, StarCraft 2 or something like that? I don't know. 8 mana, 6/9. Gain armor for every card missing in your deck. So it's like Battlecry, heal 30 armor. Holy shit. Okay, so you're playing a Control Warrior deck. You can't even play it till turn 8, so at a minimum, pretty much, you're going to be healing for like 13 armor. An 8 mana heal 13, 6/9. At its worst, this card is really strong. At its best, this card is ridiculous. Yeah, I think this card is just unbelievably OP. At the very least, it needs to be like a 10 mana card, but beyond that, like, would a 10 mana 5/5 that gains 1 armor for every card and missing in your deck be OP? I don't know, even at that point it might be really strong. That's a lot of armor. That is seriously a lot of armor. You can keep the effect maybe, but if you're going to do that, you either need to nerf the stats a lot, or you need to increase the mana cost a lot, or both. Because, just think about that. 15 armor, 30 armor. It's like 2 extra turns of fatigue, basically, if it comes to that. Or it's like playing Reno Jackson immediately with no deck conditions and getting a 6/9. Like an armor version of Reno Jackson. So just think about that for a minute. It's like you play this on turn 8 and every aggro deck just loses because the warrior just gained an extra 15 HP. Yeah, sorry, it's just game breaking, yo. Okay, and I think that's it for this card review. So overall thoughts on the cards here. Some of the cards are pretty interesting. I think some are definitely playable. Primal Drake, Void Drake, cards like that, it could be healthy for the game. Others like Light Golem, maybe not well balanced, but the idea is not bad. King of Krakens, probably one of my favorite cards here. And yeah, 4 mana, 6/5s, and 5/6s. You got to be really careful about that, unless we're going to enter a new age of Hearthstone where that's just the norm. And, you know, if that's a thing, then that's not such a big deal. But, yeah, the cards have to be relatively balanced with each other. So overall, pretty cool cards. Not bad. These are by ORipperO. And I've been Dark Skeleton. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my future videos.